Vasudevendra Yogendram Natva Jnana Pradam Gurum Mumukshunam Hitarthaya Tattvabodho Bhidiyate. So we are on the subtle body. And see, this subtle body is the mind in English, just one word, the mind. And the mind is what we invest our life in attempting to help, right? We attempt to expand our mind. In fact, that is the purpose of living, to evolve as human beings. And this evolution requires your participation with the body, and it requires the presence of a healthy mind, a mind that is relatively discerning. It has discriminative inquiry. It thinks, it engages in the world, and it thinks about what it's doing, how it's affecting the world, how it is being affected, what is the consequences of its actions, how mindful it is. Is it coming from a sense of impulsivity? Is it kind of a mechanical, just doing the same thing, but not really bringing much innovation, just kind of settling for what's been done before? Is it putting its attention on what's being done? Is it deliberate in its actions? And of course, sometimes it becomes a spontaneous endeavor. You don't really put much conscious deliberation. It becomes a spontaneous, automatic response. Now, this mind is what we all come with, and we use it at varying degrees. And it's used relatively wisely, sometimes owing to our lack of proper conduct. We make mistakes, but then the world gives us feedback, and this feedback can then further, through our free will, we can we can make a decision. What do I wish to do with this information that is presented to me? Do I wish to evolve further, or do I wish to kind of show off how I am firm in what I know, and there's nothing more for me to know? And so this is a choice that the mind has at any given moment of time. In Vedanta, we say that your mind right now, and everyone's mind, when I say your, I really mean everyone, is endowed with three capacities. And these three capacities is what we call Jnana Shakti, which is the power to know, just the power to know. Should you choose to know something, you are endowed with power to know. Know about what? Well, that depends about what you do want to know about. You can know about the body, then your power is being exercised in reference to the body. You can know about who you are, then that very same power is being exercised in reference to knowing who you are. You can also direct that very power towards gossip, and you can engage your power to know about eavesdropping on others' conversations and kind of gossiping, as a result of that. And that is that's not a very wise use of power to know. So it's kind of being wasted away. Scientists utilize this power to know about the small. We call this the world of the small, quantum physics, or quantum mechanics, or quantum field theory. That's even smaller. So this power to know is something that you are endowed with. You're also endowed with the Kriya Shakti. Kriya Shakti, this is the power to do. So obviously, in reference to what you know, that will have a follow-up on what you do. If you know a certain data amount about something, then you can only do in reference to what you know. So you're, in a sense, almost kind of localized, or the boundaries of what you know is how much you can exercise this power to do. And then we are also endowed with power to Ichcha Shakti, which is power to desire. This desire, similarly, is something that, for example, is desire, look at this, is desire good or bad, right? Is it good or bad? It depends, right? It depends. For example, you can, in the pseudo world, we can say something like, "Oh, get rid of your desires." And I've heard this. I don't know if you heard this, but I heard this from certain people. Get rid of your desires. They're kind of like the enemies for your spiritual growth. This is absolutely not what Vedanta says, because if we go back to the question, are desires good or bad? Are they appropriate or inappropriate? It really depends, because you have the power to desire knowledge, the power to desire freedom, the power to desire, to walk, which we already all exercised, the power to desire, to improve your life, right? To transform your life. That is a wise use of kama, of desire, of this power to desire. Equally so, power to make a discriminative inquiry, to think as I started out, of your experience, and thereby to expand your vision, right? To expand your understanding about these realities that we are participating in. This is also there available for us. So this power, these three powers, are all endowed to your mind, to this amazing instrument, and therefore it can be a beneficial endowment, or it can be one that hinders us and pulls us and holds us as stuck. And within these three powers to do, Kriya Shakti, power to desire, Ichha Shakti, and power to know, Jnana Shakti, we can further enjoy more endowments, which we are all given, such as what we call Sankalpa. Sankalpa is power to make a resolve. That means power to make a decision. So again, if I ask you, is this power to make a resolve, that means to make a decision, to make a firm, concrete decision, is this good or bad? Again, it's not black or white. It really depends according to your power to know, because the more you know, the more you can change what decisions you make. So, for example, you can apply this resolution to take charge of your emotions, of how you, deal with conflict, with something that is, sort of unwelcomed, or even something that is welcomed. Like, what do I wish to put my mind on in this moment right now? So in this case, it is a beneficial power of sankalpa, of resolution. I can also, put my resolution into kind of, I want this job and I'm willing to step on other people's toes no matter what. And therefore, I'm going to cross some boundaries and I'm going to violate the universal ethical values. Now, this is also possible, but should this be done, then, it's not like you create this world. We are just born in this world, which is endowed with more laws, such as the law of dharma, the law of what is appropriate and inappropriate. We're all come with this natural law. And so by violating this law, by misusing this law of resolution, sankalpa, then I violate dharma. To violate dharma, that produces, in response, an effect, and that effect is also provided by the world, and that's called inner conflict, or feeling a sense of guilt, or kind of, a self-esteem reduces because I've violated my power to know, power to desire, power to do, and in those powers I have misused further power to make a wise resolution, a wise decision, and by violation of that, then the world simply delivers me the consequences of that. That's called, or because of, power of this dharma, which is universal values, which is basically the need to not hurt oneself. And this is, by this understanding, we all understand, you too therefore do not wish to be hurt. Within these three powers, we further have sandeha, which is the power to doubt. Now, is this good or bad? See, you cannot get rid of doubting. This is endowed to you. But is it good or bad? Again, it You can't go wrong if you just say it depends, right? It depends. For example, suppose you apply the power of doubting in relation to who you are. What is your nature? So I have doubt in relation to whether what I understand is keeping with the truth. Is it keeping with the laws through which, by aligning with them, I experience a smooth ride in my life? Is it keeping with those laws? That is a doubt. And that doubt is going to set off the power to know. So now you go into research mode and you start to look for the right ways of conduct. So we are working with these powers that we are endowed with. We can equally apply this doubt and misuse it. How do you misuse doubt? For example, my spouse, she goes out and I think she's not loyal. So I put a tracker on her car. I want to just make sure, are you going to the shopping mall, right? Let me pull out my phone. Okay, the car is going to the shopping mall, therefore she's loyal. And what kind of consequences does this have? It contaminates the mind because it's not a one-off. Then that gets followed up by when she comes back and, then I say, well, I don't trust you, but I don't say this out loud. It's a little conversation that we build up in our minds. So this power to doubt can also be misused any moment by the mere virtue of it being endowed to you. Shraddha, this is the power to have, the capacity to say, I wish to stay long enough, to have the conviction to stay long enough until you may capture some truth that resonates with you. So for that, you need to stay long enough until something sort of makes sense. If we go to a physics class, you and I, and we sit down, and on the first day, we say, hey, teacher, you prove to me this is true, what you're explaining. Prove to me today that this is true. The teacher is going to be put under high pressure one day, because we all know to reveal something like how a black hole comes, or something about the bending nature of space and time, or general theory of relativity, that takes some sitting down and some trust that this fella has gone through their own troubles to kind of work things out, and one sits down for a while to give the subject matter a chance until it starts to ring in my mind and starts to relate with my own kind of understanding. I start to capture it in my own unique way, so it doesn't sort of just remain something external to me that I've heard, but amidst the hearing, it has become something that it's becoming your own. So this is what we call coming from head into heart. It's dropping from head into heart. Of course, it always starts in the head. Even self-knowledge, even the nature of who you are starts in the head. This is just, how it happens, because you capture it through your sense organs, and then it gets ascertained in your intellect, and it has to work things out. It has to sort of compare and contrast. It has to look at its own experience. And then the doubting mechanism kicks in and it says, well, is it really true? This is not my experience. And then you have to bring other additional information. Then your memory brings in other additional resources it's heard from the past. And that too can contaminate the mind a little bit and contradict the existing notions. And then you have to work that out. So this is a process that you are endowed with to work out. So this is the power of having this shraddha. They call it faith, but it's the conviction to stay long enough until having an open mind, but not just having an open mind. Because suppose you just have an open mind. Okay, congratulations, you have an open mind. Cool. We all got an open mind now. What comes with the open mind? Something else, right? A critical analysis, right? Because we've probably met some people, they're really nice to hang out, right? They have an open mind. They just agree with anything. They're just like, yeah, I agree. But then there's not much thinking there, is there? There's not much logical, rational analysis there. So having an open mind, amidst that, there is a thinking involved, there's critical analysis. Now we have something opposite to this, which is ashraddha. Ashraddha is not having any trust whatsoever. So this can come from, for example, look at this. When we do something with our minds by these endowments that are given to our minds, suppose we, say, well, I can just get away with anything, right? Because no one's going to find out, and no one's watching me. And especially in today's world, it's very easy to get away with anything. It's not like before everyone's sort of living in a village and everyone knows everyone else. Now it can be done anonymously. You can step on someone's toes if you wish. So there's no problem. This is the conclusion of suppose one mind. And now it says, well, if I can cheat, right? If I can get and cut corners in this world and I can sort of get my way by hurting others or at their expense, then that means that others can do the same, right? If I can do it, that also means others can do the same. Well, if others can do the same, then that means I cannot trust you. Ashradha. I have no faith in you. So this means on one hand, it seems like, oh, it's no problem. I'm not getting caught here. But look at the kind of consequences, the unseen consequences it's having in reference to when someone comes over who can really help them open up their mind to something much better or something much more effective. And because they exercise the sense of, no, I can get away with anything, and therefore everyone else can too, by the time that person comes up, this doubt is there, a block is there, and therefore I'm unwilling to pay attention because I don't trust you. This is a common phenomena with this sort of violation of universal ethical values called dharma, how the unseen consequences carry over to something that is quite unrelated, but it is very related. So in other words, there's no getting away. So this law, another law we call cause and effect. For every cause that I put into the world, there's either an immediate drishtapalam, this is called drishtapalam, an immediately recognized effect, such as if I step on your toe physically, right, you're probably gonna say something, right? Hey, you stepped on my toe. But if I sort of, cheat in some different manner, then even though it doesn't seem like anything's happening now, it does occur. This is called adrishtam. This unseen consequence comes back somehow back onto the original doer. Now, we don't understand how this happens because we don't even remember what we did yesterday. Then what is to say, what I am experiencing today is a product of, say, 15 years in the making. Sometimes when we have these extreme cases of suicidal cases, where the mind's been going on and building up this story of how the world is against me and there's no hope, this is not something that started off last night. This has been a buildup through the years. For every thought I was putting in, how I'm not good enough, not worthy, not loved, I can't make it, there's no hope. Every one of these thoughts was a cause being put into the field, producing that big effect that is yet to come in 5 years when the person has so much enough, they start to have some serious, they have to call the hotline, right? And so every effect that occurs in life has, whether it is a seen or unseen, either way, it has some traced back cause, which is usually not remembered, but it is there nevertheless. So this is requiring one to take a sense of responsibility that what is happening to me right now is not just some random unfair circumstance that is occurring, but there is some level of connection, whether I remember it or not, that I have as a doer done. And I just have to now deal with it intelligently according to these endowments that we are given, such as, the right form of desire to solve the problem, the power of doubting, that means applying the doubt in a manner that makes you question, is there a kind of a more effective way to communicate? So these powers are there for you to work with, right? So it's not so much what is happening. What is happening is what is happening, right? It's already happening right now. So what? It's happening. But, amongst what is happening, how am I applying these endowments, these powers that everyone is given? There is not one human being who is an exemption from these endowments, not one. How am I applying these endowments onto what I am being presented in life right now? And so this is what it means to evolve as a human being who is given this mind, this amazing instrument to, to think, to figure things out. And then we have krihi. Now this is shame, right? Okay. Is shame good or bad? Okay. Here comes the answer. It depends. Okay. Okay, then when would shame be positive or useful? Can you think of an example right now? When would shame, because we usually associate shame with, something like I'm ashamed of myself, right? I am ashamed. Oh, in fact, here we go. I'm ashamed of myself. Why? Because, I've done something wrong, right? That could be a positive shame. It's a feedback system. Is there any other positive shame that you can think of?
Say I went and stole a piece of fruit from a neighbor's garden.
Yeah.
And that is stealing away from your natural value. The goodness, if I own up to it and do something to apologize or do something correct and correct it, then that is the positive thing out of the shame of doing that act.
Oh, wonderful. Do we understand? We have we all stolen? I hope we have all stolen so we can relate. We have stolen cherries as a youngster, right? Or something. And then you own up to this person and you say, I feel ashamed of myself. Or you experience that sense of shame. This is definitely, the feedback mechanism. And sometimes, to kind of be sensitive to the environment, it can sort of induce a little bit of shame. You don't want to disturb things around. Maybe this is another form of shame. It's a healthy form of shame. You get introduced to someone's house, and for example, marriage, and your partner sends you to their parents, and you sort of experience a little bit of whether it's politeness or shame or something, but it's still there. I don't know if it's that good example, but it's a positive feedback loop. And there's, of course, shame coming out of self-esteem, sort of feeling small, right? And then, so again, it depends. So this is another endowment that you cannot take away. It is there, it is provided, it is there to be honored because it is an accurate indicator of one's experience, right? Now, yes, it is possible that one's unconscious, not necessarily with shame, but with guilt, one's unconscious, conditions can convolute one's, for example, guilt, not shame now, but guilt. Now, say, for example, when we say, I shouldn't say, I want to say something, and you want to say something, but you don't say it. And then you say, I feel guilty if I say it. Now, this is kind of, not entirely keeping in line with reality, because reality, you're endowed with ability to speak. But then, and it's true, but then you feel guilty for saying, well, if I ask for my needs, if I ask you for my needs, I feel guilty. Now, if you look back, why is this coming? Well, it is, there could be some sort of, some kind of denial that was involved, as when you were younger and you were not given things by your parents. And so when you asked for something, then your parents said, well, we don't have the money, who do you think we are, Rockefellers? And then you say, oh, I feel ashamed to now ask. And then this carries over into adulthood. And then we feel this shame to ask for life to give us some resources, to give us some happiness. So I feel ashamed to ask for happiness now. So this can also go that way. And therefore, another time, it gives us opportunity to have this power of these endowments to question our experience. So therefore, we can solve and evolve. And then we have dhihi. Dhihi, this is capacity to apply your cognitive understanding onto a subject matter, right? So cognitive understanding in reference to what? Well, simple could be 2 plus 2. Okay, this is still requiring. Is your emotions involved to answer that, by the way? 2 plus 2? Can you like feel number 4? Maybe it's possible, with, I just heard, I was watching a show by those who are endowed with savant syndrome, who have autism. You know, savant syndrome? It's a very interesting syndrome where the brain gets damaged. And in order to compensate for those damaged brain cells, it starts to form cells at an unusually high rate elsewhere in a different part of the brain. And what can happen is it can give a special skill, a special kind of an unnatural power to this individual, where they no longer see numbers. They also see colors and shapes, and they can even taste the number. This is called synesthesia. And there's one example of a fella who he was walking after a nightclub. He was 32 years old, and he got beaten up. And these folks hit his head. So he came to the hospital, and they put his bandage on. But he came home, and he didn't take much note of those headaches. But suddenly he started to see fractals everywhere. He started to see fractals everywhere. So he could see fractals. The whole world is just fractals made up of sacred geometry fractals. He literally saw, he still sees. He just had a show on one of these late night shows, and he says, I don't see, just a circle or this. I just see intelligent geometry in all things. Even space, he says, he sees as a fractal. And he's sitting there explaining to the audience how this savant syndrome, his consciousness is, his mind is able to access a part of the brain, or should I restructure that? The part of the brain is allowing more access to the mind, and this mind can see or perceive the world in a way that you and I cannot. And I thought, my God, this is so amazing. So this just lets you know how right now, because your brain and my brain are structured in a empirical sense, it is endowed in a sense that we call, quote, normal. We are able to see so much, right? We don't see geometry. We don't see sacred geometry at all. But by aligning or changing the structure of this brain, like this fella, he's able to access something that you and I don't see right now. He sees numbers, and he sees colors. He sees taste. He sees calculus. He was explaining, I don't see calculus. What I see is I see two parallel grids intersecting each other. And through this understanding, he was able to instantly give you a complex answer to a complex equation, because he perceives the entire world differently, just because he's got access to something that you and I don't have access to. I mean, and I thought this really makes one question reality, right? Here we are speaking about realities, and this guy is literally perceiving it on a daily basis. This is amazing. So cognitive capacity is endowed to you and I. It is limited, of course, to the point where it's useful enough. That's how limited it needs not to be more or less, except so that you and I can sort of work things out, do a discriminative inquiry, and work out what is this black hole, but also to work out your truth. Who are you? What is your real essence? What is your nature? To work out aham brahmanasmi, I am Brahman. So this is the highest cognitive use of this dhihi, of this power. So look at this. How many powers are we endowed with? This is dozens. Now, can you take any of these powers away? No. Even to take something away requires what? Power to do. Power to do, I need to take something away. Even to deny something, I require power to know what it means to deny, or what is it that I want to deny. That requires knowledge, and to power to push away, that also requires an endowment. So the human being is endowed with potentials to collapse, And these potentials can either cause this cycle of rebirth, life after life, or it can liberate you permanently. You know, very interesting. In 5 years since I've been teaching this, and I'm not saying that I'm a great teacher, there's so much more to know. I know that. I know there's so much more to know. I have not even started in my studies. So much more to do, right? But in those 5 years, feedback is positive, right? The only and I tell you, I'm not, there's no total truth. The only negative feedback that has ever come was from twofold. I'll tell you, this is not holding anything back. 10% was from those who have completely misinterpreted the message. So they saw, for example, 10 minutes of the video, or they saw one video out of the whole series and they concluded that that is how it is. And so they said, you don't know anything. You know, you're just saying there's so much more to this. And in this case, it's, you know, what do you say to them? Because they're looking at it from a very narrow perspective, but I already answered that in other videos. So they think that this video only is how I, you know, understand things. So they make this false, erroneous conclusion that the teacher doesn't know. So that's 10%. The other 90%, you will be very surprised. The teachers will know this because they get feedback from, you know, the watchers on YouTube and so on, comes from completely misaligned notions with reality. That means these powers have, you know, they're being exercised, but the knowledge that they are, you know, applied upon is convoluted. And I thought I would just take one example to give you something concrete to see what happens when these powers get sort of, you know, they get used, but not in a very wise way. So there is one video in the Bhagavad Gita. It says, what is Atma and Anatma, right? And the origin of ignorance. Okay, and here's the comment of one of the fellows. You are simply relaying what your mind tells you to say. So the first thing is, he thinks that what I'm saying is my own stuff. This is not true. A teacher speaks from an understanding of the Upanishads, from the Vedas. Do you feel yourself as the truth? Look at this. Just right there tells me all I need to know. So in other words, this perceiver of the video looks at this teacher and they say, oh, they're just, you know, chit chat. This is just chit chat. They don't feel it, you know. So in other words, it tells me they have this vision that this liberated person is some special big person who's like calm and they speak in a very soft way or whatever, right? I don't even know what they think nowadays. And they think, oh, they're just chit chat, and they're just talking. Do you even feel the truth? Let me make it simple for you. Atom, Atma, it's all the same. They are the building blocks of the material world. Did you hear that? Atom, Atma, it's all the same. They are the material building blocks of the world. You, Atma, you're the same as an atom, no difference. What drives the electron around the nucleus is called the Paramatma. What you have delivered here shows me that you know nothing at all. Does any of this make sense? Matter, antimatter, a pre-slumber state, atom, Atma, Paramatma. What's happening here? The whole thing is convoluted. Throwing matter into Atma, putting Paramatma, which means Brahman, putting Paramatma into what? Electron, mixing Brahman with an electron of an atom. The whole thing is convoluted. So I just want to let you know what it means when someone's operating using these powers, but it's coming from a kind of a convoluted, distorted state of mind. This is normal. For me, this is normal because I've seen this before dozens of times. But this is how it is, you know. So this is why we need, you know, teachers. I also need teachers to kind of clarify my own, loopholes. This is why we need teachers to keep us on track. Otherwise, we make statements like this, you know. We mix it all up. We Atma is this. Atma is the building block of life, and so is atom. It's all one and the same thing. Paramatma is the driving force of a nucleus. Oh my God. So, you know, sometimes you just don't even answer this because you see, people perceive you according to their limited perspectives. You get perceived according to the eyes of the perceiver. See, nowadays there's this little thing in India where they say that Rama was more pure than Krishna. Now look at this. You say, why? Because if we look at Rama's times, he was a lot more pure, and Krishna is kind of a mischievous guy. That's not what an avatar does. But if you look at the depth of this, Rama comes from a simple time. It was, I believe, what was it, Treta, Dvapara Yuga?
Treta Yuga.
Treta Yuga. And so Krishna came from Dvapara, right? Dvapara, okay. So because Rama came from a very simple time, it was very kind of, scriptures were there. And so you didn't have much complexities there. But when the times of kind of, more mischievous behavior came in, the times got more complex. So more complexities jumped into the environment. And therefore, Krishna had to navigate that. So it's not like Krishna is more contaminated than Rama or less dharmic than Rama. He's just dealing with a much more shades of gray that Rama was dealing with. And therefore, to a very short-minded, such as, with all due respect to this fella, and may they be blessed with knowledge, when they look at this from a shallow perspective, they make these conclusions like, Rama is more pure than Krishna, very shallow, and then just put a full stop, move on. But there's always that depth that requires the endowment of these powers given to your mind to understand what is the real, is there more to this? Okay. See, as useful as these powers are, as wonderful as they are, and they are there for your intelligent use, where the complication comes or the potential error comes is when there's an identification with these endowments. So see, every human being gets born assuming this much I am, right? This much as a body and this much as a mind I am. And so tell me this, when are any of these endowments in a perfect harmony in your experience? Right? You're using your doubts perfectly, using your shraddha perfectly, using your cognitive capacities, total emotional stability is there. This is just not possible in our experience. It's there more or less, but it's changing, it's volatile. So to have my eye placed in all of this, as much as they're there, empirically useful, then another complication comes and it becomes about me now. And so now I say, well, I'm not being honest, or I have a sense of shame here. And so now this makes me my endowment of decision-making to choose to improve, go on a journey of sort of a self-improvement journey. Now let's look into my mind and let's kind of open up these cans of worms and, let's just go into these different modalities. And this can now become a lifelong pursuit because the eye is put into them. So it's not like they are to be thrown away, because you cannot. They are empirically there. They're given to you. They're endowed to you. So they cannot be thrown away. However, at the same time, while using them intelligently, there needs to be another, or not that it needs to be, but according to the Vedas, it says if the mind is mature enough, it's going to start to apply these endowments to question its existence, its real, what is its truth. And therefore, the good news is we have seen in Tattva Bodha, Atmakaha, who are you? You are other than the physical body, and you are other than the subtle body, the mind, onto which these endowments are given. They're blessed onto the mind. So now we go into another inquiry, and then we say, okay, considering these endowments are not mine, at the same time they are not to be discarded, but used wisely. And they are resting on this mind, which is also, the foundation for these endowments. What is this mind that I am endowed with? What is this mind made of? What is it consisting of? And then the verse goes into, let's see what it says. Okay, so Sukshma Sharira. So what is this mind, sukshma? See, sukshma, it cannot be perceived by your physical senses. So I can see your physical brain, I can see your neurons lighting up, but I cannot see a tree. I cannot see a green leaf and a brown bark in your brain. So I cannot physically see that. And that is because it is subtle. In fact, science, tries to look at this. Now, I don't know if they will succeed. We don't know, but they want to now look at your thoughts. Now, suppose you're able to see someone's thoughts. Okay, how is this useful now? You see someone's thoughts. Okay, I see your thoughts now. Okay, great. What now? So in other words, it's just another reason to not look into one's own stuff and look elsewhere. It's just the same thing. But besides the point, so we cannot see our thoughts and, I cannot see 2 + 2, but I know 2 + 2 is there because we're having concepts exchange between us and we have a certain understanding. But at the level of the physical brain, if I were to communicate you by looking at your brain, I could not tell anything. It would just be, a bunch of electrons and neurons and, synapses firing. It doesn't tell me anything. So how do we look at this world? We look at this world through our 5 endowments. These are our instruments, which we have a monitor, we have a camera, we have a microphone, right? We have sensors on the tongue, right? So we bring the world into our mind. How do I walk into you as the mind? Through your senses. Your eyes are open and your ears are open. Because they are open, the world walks into you, when I say you, your mind. Equally so, because my eyes are open, my 5 instruments are open, you walk into me as the mind. And equally so, just like that, when there's a sort of a walking in exchange, right? We're all walking into each other all day long. 5 years from now, you're going to be different. Why are you going to be different? Because, I've walked into your life. This would say someone walked into my life and, hopefully, your life will be a little bit more, polished and more cheerful. I don't know, but, I walked into your life and you also walked into my life. So therefore, everyone is having some impact on everyone else. It's just not possible to not be affected. As long as your eyes are open, ears are open, someone will walk into your life. In fact, not someone, but experiences are walking into your life all day, right? Every single day you wake up. However, when someone walks into your mind, what do? Oh, great, you walk into my mind. No, you continue through expression. You continue to now express what is appropriate in the light of those powers which are endowed to the mind. And how do you express? You express through your 5 your 5 little motors, we could say. We got the little instrument to talk, we got the instrument to move our hands, we got feet to walk, we've got excretion, we got procreation. These are expressions. This is how you, as the mind, expresses itself in the world. Why? So that you can work out your stuff. If I just walk into your life or you walk into my life and we are unable to express, can you just imagine how limited that would be? It would be like in a wheelchair, or even more limiting than that. You're just unable to respond. If you're unable to respond to that which walks into your mind, then is change possible? Is any kind of transformation possible? Suppose I say something and there's a doubt and you're unable to use your voice to express your doubt. How is that ever going to get resolved? Or you hear something and you want to say, no, this is absolutely not the right way of conduct. And you can't, because you cannot stop the person with your physical hand. You cannot stop the child from putting their little finger inside a 220 volt plug. Mom pulls back the hand and she saves us. Therefore, these endowments of the sense organs and these instruments to not only have this world walk into our mind, but we can also then respond according to these endowments, according to these 5 action endowments, which are our sense. Pancha karma indriya, right? The 5 instruments of action. Okay. Now, these instruments are what is facilitated by your sukshma sharira, by your mind. They're just their faculties which enable physical sight. For example, you see, often we say, are these 5, right, perception organs, these pancha jnana indriya, are they physical? Is this physical eyes? Are we talking about physical eyes here? No. If these 5 faculties of perceptions were physical, that means the moment you close your eyes, you could not imagine, you could not see anything. But you do imagine. You can still see, even if your eyes are closed. You can still see color, or in the dream, see a vast world of beautiful scenery. So now in the dream, your physical body is not available. That means your eyes are not available, your ears are not available, but there is still a world perceived of sight and color. Therefore, what's in your dream? Your mind's in the dream. So what do these faculties of perception belong to? They belong to the mind, not to the physical instrumentation called the eye. The physical instrumentation is to perceive the physical world. But the physical world, that light that enters the eyes, it still has to get converted into the electrical impulses, right, into the brain, and it has to be captured by a faculty that can convert those gross light signals, gross electrical signals, into something that is understandable as a subtle concept. Because what's the difference between a physical watch and your thought? It's a huge difference. A physical is physical. A thought is not physical. It's subtle. So the sense organs have to convert something that is physical, mere reflections of light, bouncing back different colors inside your eye, and has to convert that into something that is much subtler so that your mind can understand that. So now these 5 organs of perceptions are not physical in nature. They are subtle in nature, which belong to the mind. Equally so, the 5 organs of action are, things like, grabbing things, holding things. You see, we take it for granted. But I tell you, at some point, you could not hold something, right? Or you would hold an egg. You would hold an egg and then just kind of crush it. Or suppose that is possible, right? What makes it possible to hold something just enough so you don't crush it? This is a process, in a brain is required, right? Your mind is required. So many calculations are required. They say to catch a ball, we take this for granted. If I throw a frisbee or a tennis ball to you, you have to work out the arc, right? The angle of the arc of the ball. You have to work out the time lag between the eyes perceiving that ball and responding and getting that signal into the brain, and then sending that signal into the arm and positioning that arm in just the right angle as to the trajectory that you've estimated where that tennis ball is going, and positioning your hand just in the right angle where it's most likely to land, and at the right height and at the right speed with the right time lag between the brain signals and by the time this hand actually responds. And you probably have to work out so many other things in the background, and we don't think about this. But this is all the process of the interaction between the physical eyes, the physical sense organs, right, which perceive, the subtle sense organs, which is of the subtle mind, and then making that kind of conclusion in your brain and then responding back. What sustains your physical body? It says here, pancha prana. All right, prana. Now, prana is not part of the physical body, right? Your stula. It is actually given to the subtle body. So the capacity to, right, what is physiological functions. Okay, maybe I'll say what they are and then we'll see what they say. Okay, what are these physiological functions which are also included in the subtle body? Okay, they're assigned to different body parts. For example, the physical kidney is assigned apana. This is excretion. So, I mean, not only to the kidney, but also to, the anus, to even skin is used for excreting, toxins, right? So this is a physiological function that is governed by your subtle body. What else? Prana. So prana, see, they have the word prana, but in this prana, there's another word prana. In this case, this prana is for governing your respiration, inhalation and exhalation. Are you controlling this right now consciously? Let me inhale and exhale. No, this is prana working in the background. And this is the very same prana that is still working when a fella is in a coma. In a coma, there is no there is no thinking, there is no power to do, power to know, power to desire. These powers are, they're with the mind, but the mind cannot operate through the physical brain. Therefore, the physical brain cannot host the mind. That's why it's just no activity. However, the prana is still working. Therefore, the person can be in a vegetative state. They can breathe. For, I just heard 20 years, one woman has been in a coma. I don't know, why would you keep someone for 20 years? But according to Vedanta, see, when someone's in a coma, it's actually, it's kind of like deep sleep, right? So the person is not having any sense of transformation or any kind of activity. It's just basically postponing one's journey for growth. So, so now when one decides to cut life support, that depends on how wise the person is. But generally we say if the brain cannot host the subtle body, the subtle mind, then even if that patient wakes up, what's going to happen? They say after 3 or 4 minutes of no oxygen, the brain cells start to die. By the time it's 10 minutes, even if the patient were to be revived, it is most likely, and wake up from a coma, most likely going to be a lifelong disability, a cognitive disability, a walking disability, a speech disability, or anything. It just takes 10, not even 10. They say after 4 minutes, the brain, after no oxygen, starts to already lose its ability. So even if the one is revived after 4 to 10 minutes, even there is a high chance that after waking up from a coma, there's going to be some disability in life. And so one has to make a decision. Do I want to wake up with a disability, or do I want to live with that? So that's also part of one's endowment to make a decision. However, this prana is there keeping the individual alive, right? Prana, respiration. Samana, this is digestion. So when we swallow our food, it's our prana, our physiological function, takes over and it starts to release the right digestive juices and start to munch on that food. Did you ever think about, by the way, how the stomach does not digest itself? You see, this is another thing that we don't create. We're just given, we just swallow food. We don't even know what's happening. It's there as an intelligence, which, even thinks about, not that it thinks about, but all intelligence forms the right organ in a manner that it can function for eons. It can eat tigers, 20,000 years ago. It can eat fruit, it can eat vegetables. Intelligence that has already included all possible things that could possibly be eaten, including those indigenous cultures like in Papua New Guinea. I heard they eat worms underneath the trees, right? This is their food. that too is, already endowed to be digested. It's not like if I eat this, it cannot be digested, right? As long as it's, of course, of a natural product. How is it that it doesn't digest itself? Because there's mucus. There's mucus that the stomach is surrounded, the walls of the stomach are surrounded by the mucus, which prevents from this acid, reaching the stomach lining. So this is also another intelligent endowment in reference to the physical body. Now, what is it that releases those digestive juices? This is what we call prana, specifically samana. Okay. And then we got Vyana, circulation of your body's, high blood pressure. What is that high blood pressure? That is a misalignment or unbalance of samana. Okay, so then we go and apply the right medicine to restart or to retune our dhyana circulation. And udana, this is, they say, like burping and vomiting. I think hiccups too is, and also it's said in the Vedas, this is the prana that takes your subtle body away from the physical body, right? So we cannot really see this, but it's said to be the last prana that works. And this subtle body is divided into two modes of thought. So when your thought has the nature of a doubt or an emotion or a desire, we just give that a name called manas, right? Why do we do this? So we can distinguish it from another kind of thought, which is more solid. It's a solid kind of thought, more concrete. So when we make a decision, right, we make that, yes, I'm going to do this. I'm going to stay awake, right? Then it goes from an emotion into a more concrete, which we call buddhi. That means you have made a resolve to have an experience that is, it's not now shaky. It's enjoying a firmness in the mind. So when it's firm, we call that buddhi. And when it's sort of bouncing left or right, I don't know quite whether to make a decision, yes or no, no or yes, in that sort of I cannot make up my mind mode, this is called manas, or just, it means the mind. But when I say the mind, I don't mean the emotional mind. I mean the entire sukshma sharira. Okay? So these are the two kinds of thoughts. Look, they're just names. Why are these names given? So that when you inquire into your experience, you have something to work with. If we just say it is all just one mind, then you're going to say what specifically is not I, right? Where, because see, if we just generalize it, then we put our I anywhere. So the more specific we get, the more you're able to apply an intelligent viveka. So this is why they bring out the details. You see, they say that at death, your subtle body leaves. But what is it really that leaves? Is it the subtle body, just the subtle body? Because subtle body is inert matter. Inert matter has no capacity to leave. What is it that leaves upon death? It has to be, it cannot just be what? How is inert matter called thought? See, thought by itself is inert. There has to be a conscious presence to know that it exists, right? It has to be, someone has to be looking at it. Something has to be aware of it. So when we say the subtle body leaves, who is the one in this physical body? Who is in this physical body? We know it is consciousness, but why is there a mind? Why was I born with a mind? Because of, in this case, right, ignorance, right? I put my I in a small entity, in a small kind of a small mind, a small bunch of desires, a bunch of tendencies, and a little bit of who I am, who I'm not. All of these notions get taken along with this subtle body, and who's associated with these notions? I am the one that is, Atma. So who is it that leaves upon death? For suppose an unwise person, Atma in association with the subtle body leaves. So it's not the subtle body that leaves. It is not Atma that leaves, because Atma is everywhere. Consciousness is already everywhere. So it has no power to leave. It has no power to go from here to there, because consciousness is everywhere already. So what is it that, quote, leaves the physical body? It is Atma, who believes, who thinks it is the limited, mind, a limited thought. The I sense is placed in these thoughts. That's what leaves. The one who has ignorance is the one who leaves. Okay, the one who thinks I am this much, that one leaves. Okay, do you remember about the physical body? What makes up the physical body? What is the material cause for your physical body?
Karma.
The karma, not food. Karma was the efficient cause. What was the physical cause for your physical body? What was the material cause?
Good actions, results of good actions from the top.
Yeah, that is the efficient cause of your physical body. That's the intelligent cause that sculpts the material in a certain fashion. But what is the material cause? What do we say?
Panchikrit Mahabhuta.
Pancha Mahabhuta, yeah. So the 5 elements. Good, Nina. So this is a model that we have in the Vedas, as I explained some time ago. And this model, which is the 5 elements, it's just the material that makes up this entire physical universe. And it gets sculpted according to what Vig was saying, a certain amount of past causes, past karmas that have given you this particular body that you're enjoying now. And that also give you situations which you have not worked for, or you think you have not worked for at least. How so? See, suppose life asked you, hey, can I give you a headache today? What would you say? No. Hey, can I just lose all your money on the stock market? What would you say? No. Hey, can I just, have your left shoulder kind of, extremely sore, you have to take it to the doctor? No, thank you. But life does not ask, it just delivers. And this delivery is what we call, as Vig was saying, karma. You have not asked for it, but it still comes your way. In other words, it seems like I have not worked for it, but whether we remember or not, there was some participation which has brought me this circumstance. Whether it is a pleasant or an unpleasant circumstance, it's still a circumstance. I have worked for it some way, somehow. Therefore, this efficient cause of the subtle body is a good collection of a certain amount of karma that endows you to have a strength in one of these endowments that I mentioned. Some people have a very good endowment with discriminative inquiry, right? See, we're at the subtle body now. So good karma gives you a physical body, sometimes a physical, male or a female body. And that too can be kind of a slim body, can be a pretty body. What makes some woman, very pretty? Think about this. This is also physically, at least how society perceives it, right? This is also karma. And also what country they're born in, because some traditions, if you have a slim woman, they don't find it attractive. They want something more bulkier. So that means you also have to be born in the right culture to be sort of perceived as pretty. So that also is part of that karma. Now, when it comes to karma in reference to your subtle body, that means it makes or gives you certain endowments which are extremely, they stand out, right? They just stand out. They're brilliant. You have brilliance. You have a natural skill set for something: painting, drawing, singing, playing the piano, technical engineering skills, working with numbers, working with words, putting poetry together, writing a book, communicating, being a politician. See, these are all endowments which is also part of your karma in reference to the skill set that your mind enjoys. Right. So that's the efficient cause that that sculpts your particular subtle body from what? From apanchikrita panchamahabhuta, from the 5 subtle elements. So if the physical body is created from the 5 physical elements, right, 5 elements that are gross in nature, then the subtle body is made from the same 5 elements, but they are subtle in nature, okay? Therefore, so your mind is right now made up of 5 subtle elements, but those elements are further modified to give you certain strengths, mental strengths. What is it that defines how those subtle elements are combined? What is it that determines that? Karma. Karma in reference to something that was done before. Good karma, sat karma janyam. So certain good karma, at least good enough to create your subtle body advanced enough to enjoy human capacity. Because we take this for granted, I tell you. A monkey doesn't have a subtle body of a human being. A worm doesn't have a subtle body of a monkey. A atom, well, not an atom, but a bacteria doesn't have a subtle body of a worm. You understand? So you got a subtle body that is endowed with enough good past actions that from that you got endowment of free will, endowment of Kriya Shakti, Jnana Shakti, Ichcha Shakti, right? These Shaktis are given to you because you have done enough actions. Who is this you? Atma in association with the subtle body, that you in previous bodies. So therefore, the subtle body always has to be in line with the physical body. I cannot give you a human subtle body and put that inside a monkey. That will be really interesting to see, right? There will be a highly intelligent monkey, but it doesn't work in the system. You have to give you an equal body that can stand upright, that can stand on one foot, that can sort of do these, funny, kind of contortionist things, contortionist style yoga and, Tai Chi and run and do athletes and do sports and do cooking and stand on your legs firmly without wobbling. You give this to a monkey, it's going to have some problems there. So you need to give it more stability. Therefore, the world, this karma, gives you a stable physical body because that is what you deserve. Now that you've deserved it, what do you do with it? Well, sukha, dukkha, bhoga, sadhanam, that physical body becomes a sensor, right? Your physical body becomes a sensor which can pick up the world. But the sensor has to have a means to bringing and collect that data from those sensors into one homogeneous place. And therefore, your subtle body becomes a means to bringing the data of the world into one place called the mind. And what does this produce? Sukha, dukkha. It produces a pleasantness or unpleasantness, a favorable or an unfavorable experience. And through this, you can then learn and get feedback and grow as a human being. So therefore, look at this connection between the physical body and the subtle body and all of these endowments all working together to make it possible to understand who you are and to enjoy and to go through the experiences in this world because of all of these things working together.
Can I ask one question?
Uh-huh.
For Sthul Sharira, it says Panchikrit Panchamahabhutaihi. And for Sukshma Sharira, it says Apanchikrit Panchamahabhutaihi. Could you please explain Panchikrit versus Apanchikrit, please?
Okay. Nima is very kind. Meena. Did I say Meena? Good. Sorry, I'm me. Okay. So let's start with Apanchikrit. That means it has not undergone grossification. Whereas Panchikrit, it means it has become the 5. It has gone through a process called Panchikarana, which I will get to, Meena. Therefore, the subtle elements have gone through a grossification process, which has made them become densified. For example, you have oxygen and you have hydrogen, and they're in a gaseous states, right? Now you have two oxygen and one, you have two hydrogen and one oxygen, and you combine them together, and what do you have? Something that is enjoying a characteristic that is different from both hydrogen and oxygen. Therefore, it gains by combining something that is subtle, apanchikrita. It has not undergone through any process, Mina. That's what apanchikrita means. When you combine that, when they go through a process called panchikarana, which I will explain, then what happens? They form a new kind of 5 elements, which shares characteristics nothing like those subtle. Just like water shares nothing like hydrogen and oxygen. So even though one is subtle, apanchikrita, and one is gross, panchikrita, even though there are 5 elements, when they go through a conversion process, when the subtle goes through a conversion process, then the product, the physical space, the physical fire, the physical air, the physical earth, the physical water is nothing like its subtle counterparts, its subtle constituents. And what makes up your thoughts right now? Subtle 5 elements. What makes up this phone right now? Those same 5 elements, but what happened? They went through panchikrita. They went through a conversion process. Therefore, this is now Earth. It is solid. It's made of periodic table of elements. There's carbon, there's hydrogen, there is lithium, there is, maybe argon, I don't know, but there is different elements in this that makes it solid. So apanchikrita has not undergone grossification. Panchikrita, it has gone grossification.
Andre, the endowments you talked about, Jnana, Kriya, Isha, Sandeka, are they all kind of linked to our chakra systems?
Chakra system is a wonderful metaphor for ascension, from Muladhara chakra. And then, some young man or young woman or whatever, they're stuck in the in that procreation mode. And so it's a metaphor to uplift oneself to, for example, the Ajna chakra, to, that perceiver, the one who stands between left and right and who sees, I can be objective towards left, I can be objective towards right. I'm objective towards the good and the bad. I can see between two sides. And then, finally, they say the Sahasrara, right? The 1,000-petaled lotus is, actually it's indicator for understanding. Are they related? I would say they're different categories. However, the capacity to how intelligently you exercise these endowments could be kind of metaphorically for the ascension of these chakras.
Yeah. So people could be born with different blockages or stuckness in where they're at in their emotions, which is possibly a result of past actions.
Yeah, exactly. So you want to uplift yourself, and this uplifting is what we in yoga we say your chakra ascension.
Thank you.
So it's not a physical upliftment, sort of, you kind of feel different. It's just a metaphorical by using the endowments in the right manner, and therefore we enjoy a certain level of maturity. And this maturity is what's called the chakra ascension. Mm-hmm.
Is that what just Vic said? Is that related also to the pranas where they're located, like, for the excretion and all this stuff? Is that also part of that?
No, pranas are in a different category. They're referencing what is it that just sustains your body. And it's because, see, what's the purpose of prana teaching? Sometimes we say, I am getting old or I am weak. So this weakness is prana. It's relative to prana. So I put the I in weakness, or I put the I in, I'm a strong, healthy, fresh guy, right? So again, I misplace my I and I'm putting it into my health or into my sickness. So prana specifically is to apply discriminative inquiry to have this vision, objectivity in reference to one's well-being, or in reference to one's conditions of the body as they age and so on. This is the body aging, it's the body's becoming weaker and slower, and the prana obviously is becoming less effective, but it doesn't make a statement about who I am. That's the purpose of prana. Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.